And the meeting. You want to start over? I'll start over.
Okay.
I call the meeting to order. I'd like to have a motion, or I'd like to make a motion on the floor to allow those that are online to participate in today's meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. All right, so nobody from the public checking again. Thank you. Does anybody have any changes to the minutes that they'd like to incorporate?
Under call to order, it just says Dylan Bishop made a motion, etc. It says that twice. I don't know if it's the second.
Okay, I can fix that.
There's a typo of my name again too.
Oh,
That's okay. It was right in the list, then it was like,
Keeping on your toes.
my name is always.
Yeah, plan stuff so that we have it on random, right?
Right. Are there any other changes?
Motion that we've minutes with the changes.
The second motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carried. All righty, first item up, we're 3 minutes ahead of schedule. All right, 24 rural work program. Sandy, take it away with your squeaky desk.
All right, so, one of the things that we do every year is that we go through and develop a work program that communicates back to VDOT what we are going to use with the rural transportation, what's called the state planning and research funding that we are given to the rural work program. So every year we are given 72,000, well, we're not given 72,500, we're given, I think it's 58,000, whatever 80% of 72,500 is, by the state that has a 20% local match that is applied to it to conduct planning initiatives in the non-urbanized portions of the PDC area. So that includes Louisa, Fluvanna, Nelson County, Greene County, and then the non-urbanized portions of that. In FY23, our rural work program highlights included the completion of the Zion Cluster's Gateway Plan, which has been a long-term project that we were excited to be able to wrap up. Supporting the regional transit vision plan, we had started, and we'll talk about this a little bit more today, talking about some of the bicycle and pedestrian priorities for the rural areas. And then we also use those to provide technical support with grant applications. So we might use these to support TAP applications, smart scale during smart scale cycles, or potentially other things like we helped Nelson County prepare a grant for the VDOT program, so those kinds of things. The other big thing that we did that we were successful in, that we'll talk about a little bit later, is we prepared the grant application for the regional safe streets and bridge for all programs. We were able to use some of those SPR resources to get that project funded. So in FY24, we looked through what we had that we needed to be able to support, and so this is what staff has drafted as the proposed activities to undertake for the next upcoming fiscal year. The items on the top under the administrative section, those are pretty standard, you know, the required development of the work program, preparing the committee agendas and the information sharing. And then the line items under the 171 planning and local technical assistance, those are also pretty standard, but we do change kind of what the big programming activities are. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're asking both in the Unified Planning Work Program, which is the MPO's work plan, as well as the rural work plan, to support the TJPDC staffing to develop this comprehensive safety action plan. So this will supplement what was awarded through the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. We'll continue to provide support for the development of smart scale applications. And then we have also put a little bit more in the RTP, the Regional Transit Partnership, TDM is Travel Demand Management, and the bike ped support line item to also support a required strategic plan for our commuter assistance program. So that's the RideShare program that we operate that supports basically any alternative transportation mode other than single occupancy vehicles, we're required to do a strategic plan for that. And so we're providing additional support beyond what we have requested through technical assistance grant through both the rural work program and the MPO work program. So this was prepared for the commission meeting, so I'm just going to not go back to that one, but basically, you all are an advisory committee. The official policy board for the rural work program is the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission itself. So basically, we're asking for your feedback to let us know if there are any activities or revisions that you would like to see or adjustments to those proposed work activities. And then we will be asking the commission to vote on approving the final work program at the meeting in April. Any questions? I think Curtis, well, I guess probably one of the things we skipped over early on is that Curtis is the new Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission Transportation Planner. And Lucinda has all these great opportunities to work on transit, so she's going to be supporting Curtis moving into the role as being the administrator of this rural technical advisory committee. So Curtis did a great job reviewing the draft work program, found some opportunities for improvement for me, and will work on creating a nice polished final draft for the commission meeting. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yes, congratulations on the funding. We'll be hearing more about it later on. All righty. So if there are no questions,
Can I see that as there's really support for this work program? Great.
does anybody online have any questions? And online sometimes it can be hard to hear. All righty. Let's talk bicycles. First is gonna tell us all about bicycles. It's a pedestrian, almost. I should have just said pedestrian. From COD in there.
So we have to share the screen now.
Thank you for your mentorship.
So share screen. No.
At the bottom. Bottom, if you go to, or this, yeah, a little to the right. Right. That thing, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, so that there's
You see the graphic or
Yeah.
out there.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
It's a pleasure to meet those of you I haven't already met. You should see those of you that I have seen before again. Today, I'm going to be presenting on bicycle pedestrian infrastructure prioritization. So in the fiscal year 23 rural work program, the TJPDC had allocated some resources towards this task. And so that's what I'm going to presentation today. Basically, there's the Jefferson Area Bicycle Pedestrian Plan from 2019, which the TJPDC completed with the Piedmont Environmental Council. And that plan looked at all the localities in our region to determine where we could build new infrastructure or improve infrastructure for bicyclists and pedestrians that would improve their safety or allow access to key destinations. And in front of you, you'll see maps of all the rural localities and the recommendations from that plan. If you want to reference it, it's in front of you. These are two of the localities here, Fluvanna and Greene. And one thing you'll notice is a lot of the rural localities have these rural shared use roads as the primary recommendation. And those are just recommendations to
The share online is have a preview and not have the screen, so that's what we're saying. All right, Chris.
So a lot of recommendations for the rural localities are these rural shared roads, which are basically efforts to improve those roads such that they're a little bit more comfortable and safe for bicyclists. And that includes two primary recommendations. Firstly, you can improve signage, and secondly, you can pave and widen shoulders. So the goal here is bicyclists would still be driving on the road, they wouldn't be a bike lane, but it would be a little bit safer than what's currently there ideally. And a lot of recommendations also focus on recreational activities, because a lot of the bicycling that goes on in these rural communities is centered around recreation and tourism. And during the development of this plan, they actually looked at Strava, which is an app used by recreational bicyclists to determine what roads are already being frequented. And that kind of informed how this was developed. And again, here's two more of the counties. And again, this is all right in front of you, so I'm not gonna spend too much time with this up right now, but if you have any specific questions, I do, it's like a map and it's in front of you. So basically, our goal here today is twofold. It is to determine if recommendations from the Jefferson Area Bike and Path Plan are still relevant or if they need updating. And then second to that is to figure out how we, the TJPDC, can assist you all in implementing and prioritizing these bicycle and pedestrian improvements. And that can take a couple of different forms from our perspective. So firstly, there's just the idea of developing new projects. And by this, I mean, potentially looking to see what projects we can find that weren't necessarily included in the Jefferson Area Bike and Path Plan. And second to that, we can also assist with prioritizing projects. So that would mean looking at what's already recommended in the plan currently, the Jefferson Area Bike Path Plan, and determining how we want to allocate resources, what project makes sense to focus on first. And part of that would feed into this third scope, locating funding. What projects could we foreseeably help with getting funding for? Which ones seem like they could be competitive for certain grants? And based on our knowledge, and by our knowledge, I mean Sandy's knowledge, we could help kind of direct people in the right direction for that, if that help is desired. And then fourthly, we can also just support grant applications in whatever manner would be most helpful to you. So I kind of want to just open this up for a discussion here and get your feedback as to what would be helpful for you all based on that. And if you have any suggestions, or just any comments, anything at all.
Well, want me to go first? So, it's always difficult, I've said this for 5 years, it's always difficult for a rural county, right? Because, you know, for Louisa, for example, I have two towns, 3 separate governments. And, you know, the two towns aren't here in this meeting today, and they're not connected. That leaves a lot of primary, secondary roads in the county that are about 40, 35, 45, 55 miles an hour. That you have logging trucks, all kinds of stuff, so the challenge has always been is how do you take the urban map and landscape and create an actual real 500 square mile rural bike lane. Especially when you don't, it's like we don't even have trails where we just cobble together if we want to. So I just wanted to share that aspect from a rural locality is it might be great in the towns, be great if I could connect the towns, but there's a lot of work that would have to go into that.
Well, I think that's what we're asking you though, is we have to start somewhere, right? If we want to improve this infrastructure, and if you eventually want something like a regional bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, we need to start having a conversation. So I think right now we're asking, if you had to pick one project to start or two projects to start, do you need help identifying these projects at this point? Or do you know what those projects are? Do you need help sort of figuring out how do we move these from conception phases to implementation phases? Or do you know your project priorities already? We're just trying to get a feel for where you are and what might be helpful as far as helping you all start developing a methodology or a process for doing that.
So for Louisa, I think it's a little bit of both. I think that perhaps getting the two towns in the county in the same room and going, okay, towns, what do you need to complete? Stuff like, start somewhere, to complete a actual bike network within your locality, where does the sidewalk start and end? And then the three of us to get together, do we have the ability or the want or drive to connect the town? And what are the rural roads that we know due to, because in Louisa, we actually have communities that are golf cart communities. You have to apply for that status and be approved by the board of supervisors. You know, are there communities on the lake that are combined to other communities? I agree with you, starting somewhere, and I think perhaps getting the two towns for Louisa, the towns and counties in the room and finding out what the infrastructure we have now is, which I know the TJPDC done a little work on last year about holding the towns. So that's just my standpoint. I don't know about other localities, like, I don't know whether the bikes are going down 151 and, you know, going from one brewery to another brewery, and then hopefully putting the bike on an Uber. And getting the last brewery, I don't know what's going on, Nelson.
I think a lot of the bikers in that area are more recreational.
Okay.
That being said, we're in the middle of VDOT's doing the Route 151 corridor study. So we're actually having our first public meeting, I think the first week of April. I know they're looking at the Smart Scale application that I funded at the roundabout for potential bike and pedestrian additions there. We're also in the middle of the comprehensive plan. So I think a lot of this and these recommendations are gonna come out of that process. But, you know, the things that are listed here for Nelson at least are all things that have been discussed and are still in play. So I don't know if there's more you're looking for, you know, before this plan process comes to an end. You know, we might also get a gap grant. So.
I think we're trying to figure out is what you need from us more assistance planning like a specific corridor or planning for connections within an identified growth area or something like this. Or is part of it just helping you all say, these are the projects where we feel like these projects are the right projects. We don't always want to start with, and maybe we need to understand what the opportunities might be to implement some of these in order to help make decisions. So we could kind of try to figure out, you know, how can we align certain types of projects with certain types of funding opportunities to sort of show a path forward, like we could do something like that. We're just trying to get a feel for where you all and what might be helpful to help you make decisions about how to move forward on some of these.
This is just kind of an open-ended thing. Yeah, I think for Nelson at least, we'll probably have more. In May is when we're reviewing our transportation and land use chapters. Okay, so I think we'll have a better idea of the prioritization after we work through that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether just having a map based off of the study I did last year, of like, this is the sidewalk network in both towns, this is where it stops and ends.
Just to be clear, the only towns that we did that infrastructure assessment for was Sandersville and Scottsville, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So and again, I'll go back to perhaps getting the three localities in one room and going, what do we have, what do we want to do? And that way, if there is a desire to do something, we could get your assistance, whether it's mapping or reaching out to landowners or whatever it is in order to make an actual trail happen. Yeah, I mean, as someone who's a recreational myself, I'd love to have bike trails, horse trails, all kinds of stuff. I just pull up and park and go for a little while, but we just don't really have that at this time. So I agree with you, we gotta start somewhere.
There may be some overlap with the drive outdoor grant as well, so I can have Maureen, include Maureen in on that.
Yeah, the outdoor recreational part, I think, is good to have as part of the conversation. I think our focus is more on things that can be both recreational and transportation services. But I think it's helpful to know because in some cases, especially if you're looking at a really long interregional rail or trail system, they kind of go in and out of different types of trail, development. I don't know, we do have some VDOT folks on the call, Rick or David or Chuck or Michael, do any of you all want to jump in?
Hey, Sandy, I'll jump in. I've had my hand raised. I'll go ahead and lower that. So good discussion, everybody. Sorry I couldn't be there. I'm gonna put the video on. So just a couple of ideas. I know we have the Safe Streets and Roads for All program that's coming up. And so with that safety action plan, there might be some tie-ins and some kind of like cross planning that we could do between those two plans and identifying priorities for your regions. Also, particularly, I would keep track of the Pedestrian Safety Action Plan and VTrans. So VTrans is actually going to be updated this year. They've kind of started that process, and I've spoken with the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment. They're actually working on a separate bike and pedestrian VTrans needs analysis that's going to kind of focus on the safety and accessibility portions for bicycle and pedestrian. That was a bit lacking a little bit in VTrans. We've always had the pedestrian safety part of it, which is the Pedestrian Safety Action Plan. But really the only thing kind of lacking was the bicycle safety and accessibility. So that's going to be a big emphasis, and really kind of keep track of where those VTrans needs are identified to help you kind of hone in on where your projects might feasibly be built. And then also think about the cost of the project, the readiness of the project, make sure that you have your right of way, you have your cost estimate. All of that is good to go. So you kind of want to pick projects that maybe would meet some kind of or would meet readiness needs or have a better readiness need when it comes for smart scale or transportation alternatives program. The other thing I would think about with prioritization is really thinking about equity, thinking about serving underserved communities. This is going to be a big emphasis with programs like Safe Streets and Roads for All, like Reconnecting Communities pilot program. Just really think about, what communities have not seen a whole lot of investment in any kind of bicycle pedestrian programs. And then where are you seeing your crashes? Where are you seeing incidents over a 5-year period? So you may want to focus. I know the Pedestrian Safety Action Plan really shows a lot of that. It is very urban centric, but it might help you to kind of start identify and think about those areas. But I'm curious, like, your methodology for prioritizing projects, like what kinds of indicators are you using, or have you thought about that, Sandy?
Yeah, we're really just kind of at the initial phase where we wanted to see what would be helpful, and then we'll take I think this is, I'm going to speak for Curtis right now. I think this is really helpful feedback as far as helping us sort of develop a framework. I think the question we have was, are the localities in a position where, they already have identified priorities, or are we still in a place where we need to help develop a methodology for determining what those priorities are? So I think that's the big question that we started with. And I think it's sounding like maybe we need to support the identification of the priorities based on some of this regional information. And then we can start looking at, how can we move from the identification of the need to the project readiness. Is that what I'm hearing from everybody? I'm nodding his head. Yeah.
I think for us at Albemarle, right now we're working on obviously getting all our projects and stuff ranked and sorted out. We also have Pre-Notch Trail coming up whenever we hear back from DOT and get that full grant agreement finalized. But I think we have the identification stuff pretty well down. We have a lot of projects that's happening along with VDOT. I think part of it will just be looking for ways to get funding through smart scale, TA or revenue sharing, or even just like DOT grant as well. I think it's gonna be our biggest thing, because we didn't get the Reconnecting Communities program grant, unfortunately. But I think even if we had got it, I think one of our biggest issues is we don't have any staff time to manage all these projects. I think for us, it's about just having more manpower almost, and having that extra support from TJPDC to handle all this influx of projects happening.
Sure. Okay.
Any other comments or questions?
I mean,
Other than your planning and development, I mean, should be requiring that there be a biking trail through a 1,200-acre solar project, but it'd be in the middle of nowhere. So I'm trying to think really outside the box of how do we start somewhere, right? And a lot of times either solar companies will say, we don't want anybody on the property to begin with for liability reasons. So, you know, there are some localities that have existing trails, and they're very fortunate, and then there's others that gotta start somewhere. So,
For Fluvanna, I know it's always funding. You know, as like doing something as like on the side for recreational trails, like there's a lot of railroad right away along 15 that I've been looking into, like pricing and figuring out. I talked to the DCR, I did the safe rails to trails and all that. The match is like, it's not the same kind of impact as like a smart scale or a tab, you know? Like you have to do everything up front and get reimbursed for it, so it's like super challenging for, you know, small, you know, rural counties to be able to front that money in time for something that may not get approved. So on the recreational side, for trails and everything like that, but I'm looking at this, you know, we have the bike path 76 run west east through, you know, a bunch of counties here, and that's a good thing. I'm just trying to figure out like where would the funding be for these kind of big projects, you know, widening or the shoulders, like who's gonna pay for that really it's a great idea. It's cool, we would like to do it. But more realistically, I could see maybe Zion's being more of a thing to focus on as a starting point. Between like Louisa and everything, 'cause there's already some work going on in there. Like how much more is it to ask to put in shared use or bike paths? You know, there's a ton of space, even going across 250 and 64, linking those two places, and potentially going down 15 to Palmyra. I mean, I don't know, that for us, I know it's gonna come down to funding.
Okay.
That's the challenge, is like, does it make sense to tack these on to big projects as like an aside, or does it make sense to try to get them off the ground from nothing? I just feel like, here's a cool idea. But you know, gee, I'm just like cringing at the thought of trying to ask for like $20,000 to buy a small piece of right of way. It's so low on the totem pole. You know?
Well, I think, so what it sounds like to me then is that there's probably a couple of different types of resources that you all need based on where your individual locality is. So maybe we just need to sort of do start with what David said, look at some of the existing data and start overlaying that maybe with what's already in the bike ped plan. And having some individual conversations with you all about kind of where you're at, and maybe we can determine what the next steps are for some individual follow-up with each of the localities. Does that sound? And VDOT as well, of course. I don't know where we are on the agenda, but I know, David, you have some news, so you're probably a good person to be on part of this call.
You want me to go ahead and share the news?
Sure, if you'd like to.
All right. So just to let everybody know, yesterday was my last day with VDOT Lynchburg District Planning. As some of you are aware, I'll be moving over to central office in Richmond. I'll be taking over as the statewide bicycle and pedestrian planner. So effective March 27th. So definitely enjoyed all the years working with you, Sandy, and all the staff at TJPDC. But looking forward to working with everybody in my new capacity. So
congratulations.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And we'll still get Rick's knowledge and wisdom from the Lynchburg district as part of this committee at least.
All right. Any other discussion about bicycle and pedestrian priorities? Got to start somewhere. Next up, safe streets and roads for all. Tell us all about the large amount of money that you're in.
Well, this is really exciting because we were able to work with all of the localities and do what is really truly going to be a regional initiative to improve the safety outcomes. I'll admit that I'm not following all of the safety information that's coming out of all the localities, but I know that, you know, where I live, I've been hearing kind of, it feels like, a lot more fatalities are occurring than, it feels like have in the past. So I think this is something that probably we all have some, instances that are coming to mind when we talk about the need to really take, some more significant and proactive approaches to improving roadway safety. If you all recall, I don't know that I gave the same presentation to all of your boards, but what we did was we applied for one grant for all 6 jurisdictions to develop a comprehensive safety action plan. And there will be both regional and individual locality components to this. So we're trying to do the biggest return on investment as far as streamlining a lot of the data collection and analysis and organization of the project, but we also want to make sure that at the end of this process that each locality has a set of strategies and priorities that make sense for them. So this will be a little bit of a process to get going to make sure that we are including a scope that will accommodate everyone's needs, but we're really excited to be able to develop this process for you. So based on the notice of funding opportunity and the grant requirements, there are 8 different components that are going to be required that come out of these comprehensive safety action plans. The first is that there's going to have to be a leadership, or there's an expectation that there will be a leadership commitment to adopting specific desired outcomes. That's either going to be a 0 death and serious injuries related to roadway crashes initiative, or a specified target related to what they want the crash rates to be that's reduced from today. So that's part of what will be developed throughout this process. There needs to be an established oversight group to develop, implement, and monitor any progress on the plan. So that's something that the TJPDC will be able to do both through this committee and through the ongoing MPO committees. We're going to conduct a comprehensive safety data analysis. I think that I communicated to you all that part of what I think what will be helpful in this grant is that we're also working with VDOT's Highway Safety and Improvement Program to do some of this data analysis outside of the grant. So we're going to get a little bit of a head start on getting some of this analysis, and then we'll be retaining consultants through the US DOT grant in order to sort of do some additional analysis based on the information that we get from VDOT. But there has to be robust public and stakeholder engagement that also has to entail an inclusive and representative process that feeds into the development of the plan. Has to include how the processes and policies are going to be evaluated. And then we'll get to where we are identifying the priorities and strategies that are going to be that are going to be focused on in order to achieve the safety outcomes that we're desiring. And then, like I said, there will be ongoing monitoring and reporting that the TJPDC can help facilitate. So the benefits of this comprehensive safety action plan is that we'll have a really good understanding of crash locations and the contributing factors. And that is going to include systematic and recurring factors. It's also going to look at the infrastructure related issues as well as driver behavior. So things like, are they wearing seatbelts? Are they driving under the influence? Are they young or senior drivers? Those kinds of things. The evaluation will include both of those. It's multimodal in nature. So as David mentioned, it will include looking at bike ped infrastructure and how many crashes involve bike ped users, transit and roadway users. It will allow us to develop much more close working relationships with other stakeholders that are not always included as part of these planning processes. So we're used to working with each other pretty regularly, but we don't always get like the public safety personnel or maybe some of the education folks in, or the health department, those kinds of places. So this is an opportunity for us to really think broadly about who are the stakeholders that need to be having a conversation together, thinking about how we can take multiple types of approaches, not just focusing on one type of approach individually, but thinking about how they all work together in order to reduce the fatalities and serious injuries on our roadways. And then this will also help us identify a pipeline of projects that can be submitted for applications through Smart Scale, but also for maybe future federal funding through the implementation grant pipeline for the Safe Streets and Roads for All, TAP, revenue sharing, and highway safety improvement programs. As I mentioned, this will be a multi-jurisdictional project, so I have reached out to each locality's planning director to start setting up some meetings, just so we can make sure that we understand what needs to be included in the scope for your project, and then we will be developing a RFP to solicit some consultation, or to solicit a consultant who will support the development of the plan itself. The total grant amount is just under 1.1 million, and nearly half of that was indicated to go towards stakeholder and public engagement. And then, like I said, the PDC will provide a lot of the ongoing monitoring and reporting back in order to make sure that the main focus that you all need to be focused on is really as far as the process of the engagement with your stakeholders and your public. So far, we have started attending the grant agreement meetings with the US DOT, so that's going to help us prepare for the release of grant funding. We have had a project scoping meeting with VDOT's Highway Safety Improvement Program staff, and then we have some meetings scheduled with our grant coordinator from the FHWA to review the grant agreement. I sent out those requests to review the project scope of each locality. And then basically, once the grant funding is released, we have a 2-year performance period. So we'll need to complete the safety action plan within 2 years. So we want to move forward to have our procurement ready to go. So once the grant funding is released, we'll be able to start working with the consultants pretty quickly. This is probably going to be a pretty significant topic of conversation within this group. This is one of the opportunities we have where you all are already assembled, where we can really talk about next steps and process and making sure that we're moving forward in a way that is getting you all what you need and also share information across. So I anticipate that this will likely be a recurring conversation that we have with this committee, especially once we get the actual project underway. But any questions at this point? The comprehensive safety action plan? Or any things that specifically you know are important to you all that you want to make sure is on our radar?
You know if this will have any play in smart scale? Or is it too early to determine that?
I think it could have some play in smart scale. I can let the VDOT folks might want to respond to that, but I think as long as it meets a V-Trans need, it would be an eligible smart scale project. But I don't know, do any of our VDOT folks want to weigh in on that?
I mean, the main focus of this is for the Safe Streets and Roads for All program. Basically, any local government or regional entity can submit an infrastructure project once the safety action plan has been developed. So starting in round 2, round 3 of this program, kind of the idea was to start to identify potential infrastructure projects for that specific program. But if there is some opportunity where you're meeting a V-Trans need and you've met the readiness requirements, then there might be some overlap with the Smart Scale program as well. So.
And the key point there is readiness. You know, there are some discussions about having studies and so forth complete prior to submittal for smart scale. However, we have seen advancements in particular projects within a study that meet the readiness requirements. So there's always some opportunities there. Just keep an eye out and we'll keep you apprised if anything changes in regards to that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was going to chime in, Sandy. Yeah, if there's something that we identify early, we could also advance it separate from the study. If the locality wants to pursue that for a future application, then we could advance it to try to get it developed before the application period, separate from the study if necessary.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Moving along. Was that also the update on safety analysis with VDOT, or is that separate?
Yeah,
So we're finding out that we're losing a precious number of our panel here to downtown Richmond. Is there anything, who would like to talk about Culpeper District then?
that Michael, do you want to do, or Chuck, either one of you, if you want to talk about the project selection process? Okay.
Wait, Michael Barnes is unmuted.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I didn't know if Michael's there or not. Yeah, we're working with the localities right now to identify possible TAP and revenue share projects. Most of them are up north. Michael's been coordinating that effort moving forward. So we've got several located. I don't know what he's got on a list down south off the top of my head. We're also working with other programs, the pipeline, next round of pipeline, but again, those are mostly inside the MPO area and then up in the northern part of the district. We don't really have any studies per se in the southern part of the district beyond those. So we'll be looking to gear up for Smart Scale Round 6 and putting together material that we can reach out to the localities with, so that we can start identifying possible locations or work on applications to resubmit from last round and have some further discussions regarding Smart Scale. So that should be coming later this spring, early summer. And that's pretty much it from us.
Chuck, are you hearing anything about, like every time we do a round, there's a couple of bullet points that's changed. Are they planning on changing anything, or we just don't know yet? For how Smart Scale
They are
operates?
looking at doing a lot of stuff possibly. We don't know. They're doing a full audit of the program that was initiated by the Secretary's office. So I don't know what's going to come out of that. We are looking at all the different areas and a lot of different things regarding the program to see where we can make tweaks to it, but those aren't fleshed out yet. So there'll be more to come on that as we move forward. But yeah, they are going to make some changes. We just don't know what they are yet.
And we appreciated being able to do the survey for Smart Scale. There's a couple comments.
Yeah, I've given a bunch of comments too. So there's a lot of stuff, and that's what they want so that we can make it better for the future, especially for the rural areas. I know Rick and David down in Lynchburg, they have the same issues that we're having in the rural areas, getting stuff developed and funded through the program because it's really competitive. So hopefully we can make some positive changes to the program that are going to help in those areas.
All right, well, thanks. Every time I feel like Smart Scale is just around the corner.
Every time we submit, is your staple full for projects?
All right, well, in that case, let's go around the table. I'll go ahead and start. Louisa County, like everybody else, is hiring. We have several positions open, inspector, permit technician, building inspector, tell your friends, tell your family. Zion Town Center Amendment did pass recently. They only added about 50 homes. I'm not the case manager for it, but I would say for the most part, it's just as busy as it always been. So nothing really new other than we're hiring.
I guess we're also hiring at the county, I think, for like the long range and everything or two. So you can let everybody know. Right now, what's happening? Oh, we for Free Bridge Lane, we went to the board for that 2 weeks ago, and we're going to be implementing like a pilot promenade program. So we're going to close off the Bridge Lane from Joe's in the northern end is Dardentown Park, and the southern end is 250 right by Free Bridge. And that's going to be closed off, with just gates for now, and kind of see how that flows. And then we're going to obviously, as time goes on, identify funding and kind of see what change we can make to make the actual park itself more than just like the road and make it more of a nice place that people can go walk and bike. Right now, Jessica is actually at Route 20, Sturgis Path, meeting with Ryan Gray, doing, just like preliminary kind of stakeholder information, looking at the site. And that'll be going from, I think it's Quarry Road in the city, down to Dairy Barn. So from north to south, under the underpass for 64, trying to identify how we can squeeze a Sturgis Path under there somehow, which seems like a hard job, so I'm kind of happy that she's doing that. Other than that, we have been approved for a safe route to school walkabout mini grant, which is for Woodbrook Elementary, and that will be just kind of walking around with the VDOT safe route to school people and identifying kind of what is lacking for pedestrian and bike infrastructure for the kids that go to school there, and then we'll get a report from safe route to school eventually, and that will kind of help us look at future projects we can look at for funding, kind of improving that whole area in general. Secondary 6-year plan, we want to report with that fairly soon. That mostly just a lot of it is paving rural roads, rural rescue program. We are working on the priority list that should be coming out hopefully by summer. We have to push it back because we're busy doing other things. And then any big project recently, old IV residences that passed the board unanimously 2 weeks ago now, and that's I think 525 units right next to the old IV overpass over the 250 bypass. So that'll be a big project coming along, and that'll be also a lot more transportation things happening with old IV and IV road in general in that area. And that's all I really have for the county so far.
A lot of.
Yeah, I'm busy sometimes. Again, job security, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right.
So at JAUNT, we just had our TDP approved by our board, and that is posted on the JAUNT website. Another thing we're going to be implementing is automatic passenger counters on buses. I think in about a month or two, so working on that. And I think in late May, I'm actually presenting at the CTEC conference in Oklahoma City. So if you know any good restaurants there, please let me know. But I'll be presenting on the alternative fuels feasibility study that we did with so.
Cool.
I don't have much else other than what we've talked about already. It's a comp plan. Route 151 corridor study. We're getting ready to have a work session on cluster style or conservation style subdivision development. So if anyone has anything relevant, feel free to send it my way.
What's the difference between cluster, other one? I've never heard of that before.
Something.
Fair enough.
So it was,
I'll watch the video later, that's what you learn.
well, it was recommended by a planning commissioner. There's a name associated with it, so I've been trying to do a little research, but I think fundamentally they're the same thing.
Okay.
Cluster versus what?
Conservation
Conservation.
subdivision.
Okay.
I think they're pretty similar.
Sure.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about that a month or two ago.
It's probably because I emailed Doug.
Yeah. Well, we came up with the different like agri subdivision, stuff like that, which are kind of cool, and feel like they would make sense in the counties, right?
Right.
I'll pass some of that stuff along, I thought it was pretty interesting,
Yeah, that'd be great.
and it's fun to show the planning commission.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
That's about it.
Yeah, it's about the same. We've been doing comp plan and solar forever. I did go to Goochland for their solar siting and kind of overview on their solar, and that was interesting. And we're working on a siting agreement now with CEP. I think they're also based out of downtown here and it's right down the road, 98. And then, like I said before, we were talking about the trails, and that's kind of just been my side project I've been working on, just trying to figure out how that process works. Because it's just hard to find money, and stuff's expensive, so. So I just have normal SUPs for small local stuff, and just kind of really, we're waiting on Zions to wrap up too. That's the big one for us, so. That's that.
That does remind me, not Nelson, but Amherst just had a solar project recommended for the non-active. So Nelson was an adjoining owner to share the railway trail and stuff. Interesting.
Many more projects in the pipeline right now.
For solar?
I've gone on skates so far.
I think we have a thing this year.
Who else would like to give us an update to the group? Quite much today.
Any VDOT, update?
The only rural update that Charlottesville would have is the CAT is, has an RFP out right now for the micro transit. I don't know if they would be upgrading them.
I think I pretty much covered everything I had to talk about. I don't know if Rick has anything else. Since David's leaving, he's like me.
That's what I said, David just posted in the chat that the Route 151 survey for that corridor has up to 908 participants so far.
Nice.
Do they all want more breweries or less breweries?
I don't know, David, did you document how many brewery comments you received?
I said there's almost 1,000 comments. I have not read through them. We'll kind of save that to the end, but considering 11 days into the survey and there's only what 15,000 people in Nelson County, this is probably the most robust feedback we've ever gotten on a study. So
I think you said that the average age of the survey taker was 60 years old.
yeah.
Wasn't the same person 100 times.
Well, it's funny, two people who took the survey put school bus as their main means of transportation. So there were some younger folks in there.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to a breakdown chart, one of our meetings for that. And also, I think, actually, believe it or not, I think it would be a good like 5-10 minute presentation on how you're able to get that many people involved. I don't know if you're standing outside the breweries taking notes, but that's a lot.
You do it.
Yeah, do it as they leave.
You get, yeah.
If I said so.
Or you got free beer for every survey you do, you know.
Says that his mic stopped working, so that he has that position open.
Brings up a good point about demographics too. I'm sure you are dealt with the census data not including, COVID things. It's been really interesting to work through this.
Definitely would like to see a breakdown of that data. Speaking of which, does anybody have any ideas for the next meeting? Remember my threat that if you don't come up with ideas, I will.
I don't know, Davey, if you might be willing to present on the alternative fuel study. You can give a little practice presentation.
We would like that. Yeah.
I can do that. Do you have any just do you want me to just talk about the development?
Speaking of which, I've been asked to present the problem. So I gave a presentation of Basil last year, the Virginia Association of Zoning Officials. I've been asked to speak to some staff and planning commission down in the Roanoke area. I'm still sorting that out, but if my presentation is well received, and I might get that later on as well. We're looking for topics. The last time I geared it more towards staff and code enforcement, and this time I'm gearing it more towards staff and planning commission members, which is good. It's a bit different.
That's the average age of the survey respondents.
Oh, there you go.
I know my glasses. I'm all the way up with my glasses on.
Hey, Sandy.
Yeah, no problem.
Were they mostly distributed digitally or in hard copy?
That's gotta be hard.
And we have targeted zip code. We basically targeted to Twitter, Facebook, social media platforms by zip code throughout Nelson County. Most of the respondents are in the Nellysport area, but beyond that, it was in WSET. It's been in local news, and also it was sent out to all the business owners on the corridor. So, yeah, pretty broad outreach.
Well, well done. That's I mean.
Even though it's because I'm typically the one who administers
Consult for our confidence, I think, are really good public engagement too. We, I gathered a list of all the community centers and, churches and had like certain citizen advocates that we have.
Yeah, I'm not really looking forward to the first public meeting. Last time we had this study back in 2013, I think we had 130 people at the first meeting and about 150 in the second. And 80 or 90 of them, as soon as I'd finished my speaking part, cornered me in one part of the room.
Maybe we should keep it on Good Friday then, right?
Yeah, really. No, I finally got my microphone working again. You know, to no surprise, I have a position that's open. So anybody that's has some GIS strength and some planning experience that's on the market now, closes on the 7th. And you know, going to miss David. He's been a great asset to our district over the last 11 years, but I know he's going to serve the state well in his new role.
We're all gonna miss him.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
But don't be afraid to be a guest speaker when you have.
I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of that requested, so and definitely more than willing to do it. So yeah.
Are you moving to Richmond or do you get to work remotely?
Yeah, so I have my apartment lined up. I'm moving Thursday, actually. So I'll be in the Manchester area. It's a new mixed-use development. It's got a food hall on the ground level, a brewery there. It's like a 10-minute bike ride to the office. So it's a good location, up and coming. So pretty excited.
If you want to twerk that exact building for EPA, so I know you're talking about. It's a nice building.
Oh, the current, yeah.
Yeah.
And plan RVA, so they're in the same building that I'm gonna be in. So literally will be neighbors with the Regional Planning Commission there. So yeah.
Well, Richmond's lucky to have you. Anybody from the public? We actually had nobody back. Well, good meeting. I motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, let's everybody, thank you for coming out. Appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
See everyone, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The number for there.